This is Play-by-Playcast.
Is that faster than a Greyhound?
The podcast about play-by-play guys. For play-by-play guys, by, I'm told, a play-by-play guy.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Now here's the host of Play-by-Playcast, Tom Bodett. Wait, the Motel 6 guy?
We'll leave the light on for you.
No, Joel Godet.
Joe Godet.
Joel.
Joel?
Joel, with an L.
Okay, here's your host, Joel Godet.
Don't worry, nobody's listening anyway.
All right, episode number 95 of Play-by-Playcast, and I think the first one in about a year that I've recorded from the road in a team hotel. Back on the road with Ball State Baseball in Ypsilanti, Michigan. 3-game series with Eastern Michigan coming up over the next couple of days. Or if you're listening to this on time, it starts today. I think it's the first one that I've recorded from the road. I don't know. Kind of a blur. Anyway, it means baseball season is back here, and if you need your baseball play-by-play fix and you have not heard episode 94 of the podcast yet, make sure you scroll back a week and check out our episode with Andy Mazer last week from the White Sox Network and previously the voice of the San Diego Padres. Good conversation with Andy Mazer last week. Brent Stover from CBS Sports Network the week before that, Matt Chazanow from Washington State, and Jim Donovan a couple of episodes before that. Some really good ones coming up over the next couple of weeks as well, including today's episode. We will tell you about our upcoming episodes at the end of the podcast. Today, though, a conversation I had a lot of fun recording on Monday this week with Kate Scott of the Pac-12 Networks. Really fun to talk to. And you get the sense of passion that she has for this industry. I mean, it just oozes out of her voice. And we'll dive into a lot of things with Kate Scott. But before we do that, housekeeping notes. As always, we're on Twitter at PXPcast. I am on Twitter at Joel Godet, JoelGodett. And of course, this wouldn't be Play-by-Playcast if I did not remind you that this is the podcast about play-by-play broadcasters for play-by-play broadcasters, hosted by a play-by-play broadcaster. It's a professional development podcast diving into the tips, tricks, experience, stories, process, and preparations of some of the biggest and best play-by-play announcers in the business. Who is Kate Scott, first and foremost? Pac-12 Networks does football, women's volleyball, basketball, soccer, softball. She also is the host of Pac-12 Today, a daily show on SiriusXM radio, and does play-by-play for NBC Sports Network. Does Atlantic 10 women's basketball for NBC Sports Network. She's the competition. I did Atlantic 10 women's basketball for CBS Sports Network this year. And then Kate also made big-time headlines back in 2016 when she filled in for Ted Robinson doing a couple of preseason games on the radio for the San Francisco 49ers. But I'm going to read you literally from the resume here. In addition to everything that I just rattled off, also works for NBC Sports Bay Area and California. Previously spent time as the morning sports anchor, and she'll talk about this on the pod, for KNBR Radio in San Francisco. Has been the sideline reporter for the San Jose Earthquakes. Has been the Saturday night sports anchor at KNTV NBC in the Bay Area. Has been the co-host of SFG Live, San Francisco Giants show. She's been a voiceover talent for Stitcher. She worked on the Cal Radio Network as a host for IMG. She's been a traffic and sports reporter for CBS News. You can run down the whole list. Kate has done a ton in her still burgeoning career. She's just 34 years old. And she's done it as well, and we'll talk about this on the podcast, being a female play-by-play announcer, which is something that is becoming more common, but very, very slowly, and something that still we could probably use some more of. We had Lisa Byington on this podcast a long time ago. We had Ann Schatz on this podcast, who's truly one of the female trailblazers in this industry just a couple of weeks ago. I think she was back in the high 80s, if you want to go scroll through the archives and find that. So we'll talk to Kate about being a woman in play-by-play and some of the things that she has encountered with that and the hurdles and hoops that even nowadays you still not necessarily have to jump through, and certainly probably do have to jump through, but also feel like you have to jump through as well. Good conversation today. Without further ado, here is Kate Scott from the Pac-12 Networks. How she first got into this crazy business that we call play-by-play. And actually, it goes back before that. Not even just play-by-play. How did she get into sports media? For that, we've got to go to her high school days in Clovis, California.
So I was actually walking to the office, just the big office at your high school, because I was one of those just brown-noser kids who was always talking to the executive assistants and, hey, let me swing by the AD's office and let me shout out the principal and let me just be in everybody's good graces. So I was that kid and still am now at 34 and in the play-by-play industry. But he just stopped me out of the blue. I was going into the office. He was walking out. And it was around that time where it's your junior year of high school and everybody's asking you what you want to do. So you're supposed to figure out, even though you're a junior in high school. So you don't really know. You just want to know what your friends are doing on Friday night after the game is over. And I just looked at him and said, well, I think I'm going to be a teacher. My mom's a teacher. I love the idea of impacting young people and just trying to make the world a better place through teaching people how to deal with life. And he said, oh, yeah, that's right. And then he said, but I just want to point something out to you. You do the PA announcing at our soccer games, which I did. You're on the microphone at our Friday night football games, leading cheers, which I did. You're coming into the office every morning to do our morning announcements over the school loudspeaker, which was so much fun. And just used to annoy the heck out of all the teachers and students in the morning. Ladies and gentlemen, coming up this Friday for Clovis High School. I was just trying to be the most annoying announcer person ever. So anyway, that was like a little snippet of the other things in addition to playing for varsity sports that I was doing. And he said, you love to be on a microphone. You love sports. You know sports. You're writing for the high school newspaper for sports. Why don't you look into making this a career? So it was literally not until that moment of hearing someone, kind of smack me on the forehead and say, hey, idiot, all of these things in your life are lining up telling you to do this. Why don't you do this? That I even started to consider it, just because it's the whole, why are you going to be what you can't really see? There were so few women doing it at that time that I just didn't even really consider it a career path for myself, obviously. And then just to kind of get back to some of the things I mentioned. So, yeah, I was just always on a microphone because it was something that I loved to do, dating back to starting to MC events when I was in junior high school. It just felt really natural. I was on the microphone at rallies, leading the way for the 7th and 8th graders, and then just transitioned into doing that. Whenever I wasn't playing a sport, I always wanted to be on the microphone announcing the other sports at my high school, and I was given that opportunity. So yeah, that's kind of where I was when things slowly started to fall into place.
Do you ever wonder, just out of curiosity, what Kate Scott, the teacher, would have been like? Or even now, are there things that you do now in your career that kind of satisfy that thirst of wanting to maybe impact younger people and ways that you can still do that now going down the path you have?
Yeah, shape the youth of the world. Yeah, and it's kind of strange because I still feel extremely young in this industry, and that's hard to kind of get across to some people in my life who want me to be further along. My wife, who just kind of say, okay, but come on, aren't you going to be, to this spot soon? I try to tell people play-by-play is a really long, slow journey. But to answer your question, so it feels weird to me to be already. But then I look back and realize, okay, I have been in this industry for 15 years now. Yeah. So of course I'm mentoring because 15 years is a really long time. So I kind of get both sides of the coin. But yeah, so that's what I found over the last, probably 5 to 8 years. It's kind of the general time frame of, okay, I can speak to people who want to come up in this industry, whether it's guys or girls, whether it's individually or in classes. Most recently, I was up in Oregon calling a fantastic Oregon UCLA softball series, and the Awesome Group, AWSM, is a women in sports media group that I really like. They have an Oregon branch, and they invited me the night before for the series opener to speak to the kids, and some guys showed up, and we just talked for a good 2 hours about everything. So I lay out my path, and then I love answering questions. That's the best part, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, enough about me. Okay, what do you guys really want to know? What is the industry really like now? And that's the crazy thing too. It has changed so much in 15 years.
Yeah.
Kids ask me how they should get their start, and I say, I don't really know anymore. Here's what I've heard from the PAs that I work with at the Pac-12. Here's how I got my start. Here's how some of my good friends in the industry got their start, and it's all different. So a long-winded way of answering your question about, how do I get my fill of the teaching? That's one way I do it. And I try to go out of my way when I can. And I'm sure there's kids at the Pac-12 Network who hate me for it. But just to try to use things as teaching moments as often as I can, pull them aside so it's not in front of everybody, but here's how this went. Here's how I think we can do it differently in the future to make it better for both of us. But yeah, I sometimes think about what crazy teacher Kate would be like, and I'm sure I'd be crazy. I'd be the teacher dressing up for the Friday hat days and the wear your pajamas to school Tuesdays, and kids would probably roll their eyes at me all the time and think I was the most uncool person ever. So very similar to me now, just teacher as opposed to sports broadcaster.
Miss Scott came in dressed as Margaret Thatcher today. It was very odd.
Exactly.
So how did you, once you went down this road, I know you were very active in writing when you first got involved and when you went to Cal. At what point did you say, like, play-by-play is the long, slow journey that I would like to pursue and take a shot there?
Yeah, so that wasn't even until after I graduated from Cal, which is another, I guess, just interesting part of my journey. So started kind of on the microphone and writing for my high school newspaper at Clovis High down in the Central Valley, Fresno, Clovis area of California. Went to Cal, continued writing, and then got into the television side of things. When I bugged a guy with a camera, Paul Aldridge, who's one of my mentors, and worked on the Cal Highlight Show. This is way before the Pac-12 Network, so it was... Gosh, I think it was Fox Sports Bay Area at that time. As everybody who's worked for the regionals knows, it's changed so many times. It was Fox Sports, and then it was Comcast, and then it was NBC, and then it was Fox again, and now it's NBC. But anyway, so we would produce this kind of like live-to-tape 30-minute highlight show once a week, and I was the student 2.5-minute segment on that show. So I did that at Cal, and then graduated and got into radio after I graduated from Cal. And by that point, Paul had started doing more and more things, and he was producing some of the high school football games here in the Bay Area. So it wasn't until after graduation, when I had started my radio career, actually, and was focusing on that at that point, that just out of the blue, I got a call, and he said, hey, starting to do high school football packages. So we have our live games on Friday nights, and then we're also going to do a B package where we do live to tape games on Friday that will air on Saturday, which is like the second best games of that weekend. And I'd love to have you do it. Football, I've loved working with you in the past. What do you think? So that was kind of the first foray into play-by-play. And as everybody knows in this industry, it wouldn't have happened without that contact, right? It wouldn't have happened without somebody who I met my sophomore year in college and worked with him long enough to show him my work ethic and my drive and my passion for the industry. So yeah, that was where I got my first shot in play-by-play.
What made you want to do it? Or I guess, what did you think when that was proposed to you and you said, like, all right, we'll give this a shot and see if I can do it?
Yeah, well, kind of similar to all the jobs I've been offered. My first response was, "Oh shit, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Oh god, this sounds like way out of my range. I don't know how this is going to happen." But I think it gets back to just the curiosity that I possess. I'm still one of those. I still, again, consider myself a kid who's just always trying to learn and improve and figure out things that I don't understand and how I can do them. So that was kind of my first response after cussing to the offer. Okay, I don't know how to do this, but man, it sounds like a skill that I'd really be interested in learning. As a former athlete, one of the things you miss the most is not getting to be there and be a part of the emotions, the highs and lows, right? I'm sure you hear this from everybody.
Yep.
One of my favorite parts, because I do everything else too. I do studio anchoring, I do sideline, and there's just something about, same with sideline. getting to be at the game and a part of it, and to kind of feel those emotions again from a slightly different perspective. So the idea of that kind of got me thinking, okay, I don't know how to do this, but man, if things work out, it sure sounds like an awesome thing to know how to do and to get to maybe do as a career. So yeah, I'd love to try.
What steps do you take to overcome that oh shit moment? And I mean that from, if there are people that are out there that are listening to this that are just doing their first anything in play-by-play, or somebody's out there doing a sport they've never done before, and somebody asks, and you're like, well, sure, but oh shit, now what do I do? How did you approach something that was new in terms of researching it or prepping, or who did you talk to? How did you get yourself to feel better about it before it started?
Yeah, so all of those things. So the way I get over it, I mean, I think it's important to feel it, because that drives me as a sports broadcaster now. The fear of messing up. For me, oftentimes, it's the fear of letting down my entire gender. Oh, this woman finally gets a chance. Well, she better not F it up for everybody else who's a woman. I feel that, definitely. So the way I deal with it is multi-pronged. So I throw myself into research. I think the internet is, as we've heard multiple times, pretty incredible. I don't know how people kind of taught themselves how to do things before the internet. So I just throw myself into watching broadcasts on YouTube, because there's so many things available, right? Writing down terminology that you don't understand from a sport. Listening to things that you like and you don't like, writing those things down for me as well, so I can kind of shape and figure out what sort of play-by-play announcer for that sport I want to be. For football, way back in the day when Paul called, I reached out to somebody who I really admired and respected here in the Bay Area. His name's Barry Tompkins. I'm sure a lot of people who listening to this cast nod and know who he is. Longtime boxing announcer for Showtime. Called a ton of Pac-10 football back in the day, and it's called High School Sports Forever here as well. And just cold emailed him. I asked somebody for his email, sent him an email and said, hey, I've been offered this opportunity. I'm scared out of my mind. I love the way you call games. Is there any chance you'd be willing to have a coffee with me and maybe just chat with me for a little bit? He emailed back the next day. I think a couple weeks later, we had literally a 3.5-hour lunch. It was one of those, the servers stopped filling up our waters because they need to take the break in between lunch and dinner and want us to get the hell out of the restaurant. He brought old boards that I could take home. It was just incredible. And that kind of not only helped set me on the right path in play-by-play, because that was my first ever foray into it, high school football. And one of the things he told me was, if you can do high school football, you can do anything. Because there's so many kids on this roster. There's no media guides. So any research, anything more than height and weight, which is probably wrong, because probably the teacher who plugged it in wasn't really paying attention. If you can get pronunciations from, parents, just go into the crowd, talk to as many people as you can, deep dive on the Google, try to find if there's papers who've written about him. He said, if you can do that, you can do anything. So that kind of set me on the path for research for play-by-play. And also really that was kind of the start of, wow, he had such a big impact on me. I want to have this impact when I'm to the point in my career where it can actually have an impact on people, because I've at least called a couple of games that matter, and that they will listen as well. So that kind of sent me on the mentoring path too. So kind of those are the ways I prep. I also read a lot. Just how-to books. I one of the first sport I was ever offered to call for the Pac-12 was volleyball, which is one of the sports I'd never called up to that point. I'd done football, I'd done basketball, soccer was the sport I played more than anything, so I felt confident when I started doing that it'd be fine. And of course, the first sport they offered me is volleyball. So I was like, shit. So again, a deep dive, listen to games. There were so many terms that I didn't understand. So I was on volleyball chat rooms, talking to people. But it all paid off, and now here I am talking to you on a cast about play-by-play announcing. So it's wild.
How'd you get good at it? What did you do? How much of yourself did you watch back? What was the hardest thing for you to hone in? I mean, can you kind of take me on the process from when you started doing it to when you felt confident that you were good?
Oh yeah, I think it's still
That's a
day-to-day
loaded question.
thing.
I know. Yeah.
I think it's still a day-to-day thing. I still am not sure that I'm good at it. I think I'm getting better. This year 3 at the Pac-12 is, I think, the first year where after certain broadcasts, I started to feel pretty good about it. I wouldn't go out to drinks or dinner with the crew afterwards and the whole time be beating myself up about that one thing I didn't say,
Yeah.
or I couldn't believe that I talked over that one play. I should have just let the picture do the talking. And this, I think, was the first year where I started to say, okay, that was pretty good. There's a couple things I could have done better or differently, but I'm not going to beat myself up. I'm just going to be in the moment with the crew. So how did I get to this point? I think just like being an athlete, the reps are invaluable. You just have to call games and you just have to make mistakes and you just have to listen back. I try to listen back to almost every broadcast, not necessarily the whole broadcast, but just parts that I know. Okay, I know how this sounded in my head. Let's listen back and see how it came across on air. Oh, because most of the time it's not as bad as the just awfulness that I thought it sounded like. But when I started doing play-by-play, I was often doing radio play-by-play for television, which is something I've heard from a lot of people. You just feel the need to call everything. You don't realize that you're just capturing pictures, that the picture is there, so you can back off a little bit. So that was kind of listening to my first few broadcasts. I was just talking incessantly. So I think just like writing, just kind of like every part of life, editing and learning how to edit yourself is kind of the process of getting better. So as I stopped talking less and started letting the pictures do more talking, that was also when you start to look up more from your boards, right? You're not just trying to get everything in. You're not trying to read the novel. It doesn't matter. You only use that stuff. You use the stats, use the stories when they fit with the story of the game that is actually taking place in front of you. And I was just listening to a number of the casts you've done over the weekend, and that was something Dave Fleming said, that John Miller just told him to throw away the game notes.
Yep.
I just call the game. And I think that's really hard to do at first because you do all this research and you have all these great stories, but then you have to realize people just want to see the game and have you call the game. And then if there's one of those great nuggets that you researched that fits with the game, then put it into the puzzle, then help complete the puzzle. But you don't have to force those in at all. So that was another part. And then continuing on, I guess, with the editing track. This year, I've really, really tried to focus on when I can be quiet and let really the game and the pictures do the talking, because I work with such phenomenal producers and directors at the Pac-12. I got to do my first few games with NBCSN this year back in the A10 conference. And the same thing, you're working with such great people, let them shine, let them do their job too. And same with analysts. So I was trying as much as possible. That was my focus this year, to really let the other people shine, which is what you're supposed to do as a play-by-play announcer. You're the point guard of the broadcast. But I think that's difficult when you're first starting. So again, very long-winded answer to your question is I try to just focus on one or two things each season so as not to get overwhelmed and in my head too much. But just, the first year I just talked too damn much, period. So stop talking as much, condense your verbiage, figure out a way to say what you did in 15 words in 5 words this season. Okay, and this season, try to look up more and try to just be in the moment and call the game. Okay, and this season, try to use silence more when you can. Let everybody else do their job. So I think I'm just trying to focus on one or two things each year to get better. Another thing I was working on this year was making the big moments feel bigger. So you can get excited about the three-pointer, 5 minutes. The first inning home run, but you have to allow yourself that place to build to. So work on that. So those are all the things that I've been working on. And so just continuing to get better. So yeah, I don't think that I'm good yet. I think at times I'm good. And now I'm just searching for that consistently good on every single broadcast, on every single sport that I do.
I want to go back to a couple of things that you brought up there, if I can. And the first one was when you talked about letting the analysts shine more, and how you've taken that step from, letting the analysts shine versus helping the analysts shine, and what you've done in kind of that quest to set them up and to put them in the best positions and the ways that you found work best to get the best out of the people that you work with.
Yeah, well, and that's a really interesting question, Joel, because I get to do both with where I am in my career right now, right? I work with some incredible analysts. I work with Mary Murphy at the Pac-12 Network, who she coached in the NCAA. She coached in the WNBA. She was a Wade Trophy finalist when she played. She calls men's games for us. Like she is the tops when it comes to basketball analysts. So I get to call some games with her. So really, it's get out of her way because she's so knowledgeable about the game. So I don't have to set her up at all. I just have to get out of her way. Just call the game and she'll do the rest. And then really turn and listen. And that's something that took a while to learn as a play-by-play announcer too, right? Don't just watch the game and call the things that you want to call. Really turn and listen to your analysts so that's how you continue the story. That's how you keep the flow going. And that's hard at first because you're trying to pay attention to so many things and look at your board and you don't want to miss anything. So it's hard, I think, to listen when you're first starting out. So it's easy with certain analysts that I work with like that. But then I also get to work with some analysts who are just starting out, who are former student athletes who are just getting into the industry. So with them, it's fun to kind of put on, the mentor hat again and talk to them before the game and ask them, okay, what stories do you want to get in? What players do you really know well? What is it that you want to say about them? So that I know even before the broadcast, the people that they will feel comfortable talking about when I should lay out the players that they maybe don't know that much about or a coach that they don't know that well so that I can do more of the talking in that point. So that once we get on air, it does feel really comfortable for both of us and we're not stepping on each other and there's not those, when you set up your analysts and all of a sudden they're just looking at you like, why did you just set me up for that? I have nothing to say about that person. So again, it's kind of like pre-show research, same thing falls into that. And it's just a constant learning process too. Even working with really well-known analysts like Mary, you learn the things that they really like talking about and the times where they like to lay out too. So just reps. And I think I'm really lucky that I get to work with both sides, people who are just getting started and people who are really knowledgeable because they push me and challenge me in different ways and force me to kind of constantly learn too.
I kind of like that too, the concise way that you said it's like the pregame analyst checklist of things to go over with them. So I'll have to go back and mark that down to tab it. The other thing you talked about was the talking less, and I kind of wanted to juxtapose that too with. I feel like that was definitely my problem when I first started doing television. And then, I feel like there are many times where I reeled it in so much because people said talk less, and I just stopped talking. And I got the reverse criticism by some people where it was like, I know you're on television and you want to talk less, but at some point you still have to call the play. Where did you kind of find the happy medium, or can you kind of tell me a little bit about your journey of finding that happy medium of exactly what you do want to talk about and the way to best capture the emotion without letting it just kind of be crowd noise and you be the afterthought as the announcer and still trying to make yourself important to be there?
Yeah. And I think still finding it, that's another one of those things that I'm still working on. I think the way that I've done it is first couple of years, I was just talking incessantly, trying to get every single thing in. This team beats this team, and it's the first time since this year, and because of this, they win this. And it's like, you don't need to get it all in now. You're going to have 2 minutes after this moment is over to kind of put a bow on it. So I found that I was talking too much, and I was getting everything in, but I didn't know what to edit out at that point because I was so new. So that's when and I still do this, I just really pay attention to as many broadcasts as I can. I watch them now as a broadcaster, which is annoying sometimes for my friends. But I'll tell people to be quiet because I want to listen to how somebody's calling something. So, I mean, for example, and this is a couple years old now, but Joe Buck calling the Cubs' first World Series championship in 8 million years, right? Cubs win. And then it's silent for like 2.5 minutes, just letting things come in because everybody knew everything about that moment already. So that's all you needed to say. This past weekend has been awesome listening to Adam on ESPN.
He was great. Yeah.
Calls so many great moments in women's basketball. Here's who hit the shot. Here's what happened. Notre Dame moves on to the national championship. Notre Dame wins the national championship. And lay out. That's it. You can fill in all the other things in the moments after. So that's what I've tried to do. And I think the first big moment where I got to try this, and I'm still not sure I did it exactly correctly, but for some reason I ended up on Tara Vanderveer's 1,000th career win a couple of years ago. And apologies to everyone at the Pac-12. I like wanting to apologize to Stanford. I'm sorry. I know you'd probably rather have somebody who's done this a little bit more than me on this broadcast. So that's how I was feeling. And I know I shouldn't be feeling that way. But so I really was thinking to myself, okay, if I get the opportunity to call this at the end of the game, I really want everything else to do the talking. Everybody will know what the moment is. So I just really have to call, and Tara Vanderveer joins the 1,000 win club, and then just let it breathe. So nobody, I think, as you've heard other broadcasters say, I don't memorize what I'm going to say, but I definitely during the day was trying a bunch of different ways to call it. Okay, that was too many words. Okay, let's try this. Okay, no, this is too little. So listening back, I probably would have changed. I would have brought a little more excitement to my voice. We pick apart our calls. But I just said the other coaches who'd done it. So I said, this is the date that Coach Krzyzewski did it. This is when Pat Summitt did it. And today on this date, Tara Vanderveer, as the clock is running out, joins the 1,000 win club. And then just handshakes and teams celebrating and all of that stuff. So I was pretty happy with that call. And then if we switch to other sports, I've gotten to call some walk-offs now in softball. And I've looked back, and softball trots are pretty quick. But the best part of that, right, is the celebration at home plate. So I called a couple where I was just talking all the way around the bases again. This is what happened. This is the walk-off. They win the series, and now they're this in Pac-12 play, and this is coming up next week. And it's like, shut up. All you need to know is what this means, why it was a big deal. And then I like to try to stop the call someplace between third base and home plate. And that weekend, a couple weekends ago in Oregon, a walk-off shot to knock off UCLA. It was an upset for the Oregon Ducks. And I just tried to call what it was, and that they, took the game and the series from the Bruins, and then pause and then let all the smiling faces and the O's and everything and the celebration at home plate take over. So I think I'm still figuring it out just by watching things back and thinking that was too much of me. I didn't let the moment shine as much. And then listening to other big moments like this weekend. I'm sure there'll be another few. It's been great just watching March Madness because you get to hear so many different broadcasters and how they call big moments. And now the baseball season's back underway. Same thing. Anytime there's a big play, I just try to listen to all the different ones and see what I like and don't like. And I think that's what everybody tells you as a broadcaster, right? You got to be yourself, but take little bits and pieces from other broadcasters. So if you like a word that they used, I try to write down words. I have like a running list on my computer of great words for volleyball and soccer and basketball, just that I can try to continue to expand my vocabulary, especially when it comes to exciting moments. So that's how I've done it the last few years, and I'm sure I'll listen back to some of the stuff I'm calling this year and try to improve upon it next year.
Who do you listen to? Who are those people that you take from maybe most?
Ooh, everybody. Try to listen to as many people as I can, because I think that, sometimes unknowns or underrated or up and coming just because of the teams or colleges they work at, can be creating magic, and we just don't know about it. At the same time, most people who've gotten the big gigs are where they are because they deserve it and they've put in the work. So, Adam, who I mentioned this weekend, great guy. Just love listening to the excitement in his voice. I'm surrounded, I live here in the Bay Area. I'm surrounded by so many incredible play-by-play announcers. I would be stupid not to listen to them. So, I mean, I worked for KNBR, the Giants flagship, for 6 years. So Flam, Miller, Kruk, and Kipe. I mean, when it comes to calling baseball, we're just damn lucky here to have all of them. And they all bring different things to the broadcast. So listening to them, Tim Roy, who does the Warriors radio broadcasts here in the Bay, Bob Fitzgerald, they do a phenomenal job. They're very different broadcasters, but listening to them, the people I work with at the Pac-12, and I'm not just saying this to blow smoke. I mean, again, Flem, Ted Robinson, Roxy Bernstein, Guy Haberman, JB Long, the voice of the LA Rams. It's just like I'm surrounded by so many top tier talents that I would just be stupid if I wasn't listening to them. And then also, the women that I work with at the Pac-12, you had Ann Schatz on a little while ago. I mean, when it comes to trailblazers,
she's great. Yeah,
she's at the top. Krista Blanc, who was doing radio sideline, I think, for Westwood One at the Final Four. She's our number one women's basketball play-by-play announcer. So working with her. So I listen to all of those people. And then, I mean, on the national stage, I would love to have, the football calm and importance of an Al Michaels. I mean, you can throw out all the big names, right? Brad Musburger. But I think I don't want to be exactly like any of those people, but I think you get to a certain position and you learn from it. Beth Mowens is our number one right now because she's put in all the work and learned from it and is a mentor of mine now. And, I listen to her to see things that I like and would do differently because we're just different people. So watch your feet. I'm dropping names at this point, just throwing people out there. And I'm sure I've forgotten a bunch and I'm going to be mad at myself after we're done chatting. But I really do try to listen to as many different people as possible because I think that doesn't get me stuck on trying to emulate one specific person. And it also just keeps my eyes and ears open to all the different ways I can do things.
You mentioned Anne being a trailblazer there and Beth and all of the other women that are kind of titans of this industry in their own rights. Yeah. So if I can bring up the woman issue with you, what's it like nowadays and how much has it changed? I feel like there's such a, it's almost like people that, like the Twitter trolls, they're like, she's a woman, I don't want her on my TV. It's like, well, screw you, buddy. Like, I feel like the majority of the people now, I feel like the public perception has changed so much, but that's like, go ahead, white man preach. What's it like from your perspective? Has there been a shift or is there still that internal pressure that like you said earlier, like, hey, I don't want to screw this up because I don't want to screw it up for everybody?
Yeah. I think it's both. I mean, obviously there's been a shift, right? I was just telling you, as a high school junior, not that many years ago, 99, 2000, I didn't even think I could do this because I saw Robin Roberts and Linda Cohn on SportsCenter. They were the female anchors. I saw Hannah Storm and Susie Colbert a little bit and Bonnie Bernstein and Michelle Tafoya, but like that was it. It was like the handful and Leslie Visser and Andrea Kramer, obviously on a national level, but there were so few. So the facts just number wise and the fact that Beth Bowens is calling NFL football and that I work with so many women play-by-play announcers and analysts at the Pac-12 now, and that Jess Mendoza is calling Sunday Night Baseball and Doris Burke is doing NBA and Carol Lawson, so yes, definitely there's been a huge change, but at the same time, it's still, there's Doris, that's one, there's Beth, that's two. So I think that I personally still definitely feel that pressure of everybody's still watching. And yes, there's more acceptance now and we are moving in the right direction. But I know that if I say something incorrectly on a football broadcast, it could be bad for women for a long time just because this was an opportunity and man, she really screwed it up. And then there's going to be that hesitation again because it comes back to who does the hiring, right? It's still 99% white men. So why do they want to put their neck on the line for somebody who might make everybody look bad? It's a risk still. So that's why I'm so thankful for Paul, who I already mentioned, and for the 49ers a couple of years ago, and for the Pac-12, and for everybody who's given me an opportunity. Because do I feel like I've worked for it and deserve it and have earned the opportunities? Yes, but I also understand that there could be blowback and there could be things that they wouldn't experience if they had just hired another white dude to do it. So I appreciate and respect and I'm grateful for that, and try to be that much better because of it. So I think it's both. I think we are in a much better spot, and I'm so grateful to the Anns and the Andreas and the Leslies and, Christine Brennan and everybody who put up with all the shit they did, because it was – I've sat down with them and I just can't do anything but shake my head and say, I thank you. Like, I can't believe everything you put up with. I don't deal with any of that. Internet trolls, yeah, that's way different than going into a locker room and experiencing some of the things they did, or from front offices, or from people who actually hired them to do broadcasts and then said certain things to them before broadcasts. Like, it blows my mind that they were able to continue working and grinding and keeping their head up and getting to where they are now. So yeah.
Do you feel like we're beyond most of that too? Even, and this goes beyond play-by-play for you. Because you're always out covering things regardless what outlet it is. Does it feel different for you now just covering sports and going into locker rooms or going to practices?
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. Anytime I'm in any of those situations, I'm in a meeting room with a bunch of male coaches, and everyone who I'm sitting with me, my producer's male, my director's male, everyone who I'm working with is a guy. But they're just talking ball with me. And then I think back to some of the stories I've heard from the women who've been doing this a little bit longer than me, and that something as simple as a meeting and being looked at as an equal and accepted and just, okay, yeah, she's a part of the broadcast, let's talk ball. That they didn't get to experience that 10, 15 years ago. It was, who's the chick in the room? Like, can she get me a coffee? Yeah. Make me a sandwich. It's crazy, but I think it's an important thing for, I say young kids, but I also mean people my age and guys and girls, everybody, to understand that yes, it's changing, and yes, we're moving in the right direction. But it wasn't that long ago, and we really need to respect and thank everybody who got us to this point, and then do our job now to push it that much further forward. But I think a lot of that, shout out to the guys too, because again, the people who were willing to take the risk, the coaches now who treat me with the same dignity and respect as they treat all the guys that I work with. I think a lot of it has to do with Title IX and the fact that so many people I work with, so many guys that I work with, they have daughters, right, who've played sports and who've grown up playing sports and are now coaching or officiating or working in sports too. I think that has had such a huge impact on things because they get it now. They grew up also knowing, oh yeah, women can know sports, so that's helped. So yeah, we're moving in the right direction. Just got to keep kicking that can down the road.
I don't want to take too much more of your time because I've already gone over what I asked you for. But if I can
no worries.
Sneak in something else here. I do want to fanboy on the 49ers thing. What's it like calling? What was it like? To go into a booth and call an NFL game.
It was terrifying.
Okay.
It was, gosh, everything you can think of. It was incredible. It was amazing. It was career changing, as I knew it would be, but it was terrifying and overwhelming, and I probably prepped way too much for it, and probably should have taken the advice of just throw it away, just throw the game notes away and just call the game. But again, it was no woman had ever called an NFL game on the radio before, and I'd never called a football game on the radio before, right? I'd done TV football. So it was like, holy fuck, what am I doing? But I knew that I was prepared to call it. The fact that the 49ers again, were wanting to give me the opportunity meant so much to me. Bob Sargent calling me and offering me the opportunity, that's like another one of those, just like junior year in high school in front of the office down at Clovis High. Like, that's another one of those moments I'm never going to forget. It's going to be etched into my memory. Especially as somebody who grew up a 49ers fan. I mean, what is the chance that anybody is going to get to call an NFL game, period, and then get to call for the team that you grew up cheering for? I mean, walking into Levi Stadium that day was just another one of those days. Like, what am I doing here? Is this real life? And then just getting down to it and trying to be the best play-by-play announcer I could. I think that was a big part of it. Don't get overwhelmed. Just try to stay in the moment. Do the best job that you can. Working with a couple of analysts, it was a 3-man booth, and that was another thing. Those guys, Keena Turner and Dennis Brown, amazing ex-49ers. They only really do this during the preseason too. So again, it was the pre-show talking. What do you want to talk about? What do you want to talk about? Because it's not something they do all the time. So, it was awesome and terrifying and incredible. And that was one of those moments that gave me the confidence after listening back to the broadcast of, okay, you're okay at this. So let's listen and hear what we could have done better. I sent the tape out to a bunch of friends who then critiqued it, and we had conversations about it. But I just saw it as another couple of reps. I got to call it the first 2 preseason games because Ted Robinson was down in Rio at the Olympics. So just using that as this was a decent, let's get better now, and let's continue to get better as a broadcaster, and especially at football. And if you do radio again, how can you do this better? But it was a phenomenal experience that I knew, again, if I said yes, I knew that it would get me some recognition nationally and help to push my career along a little bit. So it was all of that and more. And I'm so thankful that for some reason they took a risk on me.
Did that become a goal? Or maybe it was before that. Like, after experiencing that, did you say, like, hey, I want to be an NFL voice of a team?
That's the interesting thing. Not yet. It was what I said, incredible. And yeah, I mean, if the 49ers called and said, we'd love you to be our radio voice, I'd say, no. Hell yeah, let's do it. Can I sign the lifetime contract now? Because it was phenomenal. I'm getting asked that more and more, so I guess I should work harder on having an answer to it. People are like, do you want to be the first woman to call a Super Bowl? And maybe, but I'm just having so much fun right now calling everything.
Sure.
And to be honest, soccer was the sport I played the most. It was my travel sport until I got hurt, and then really went into journalism full time. So, like, calling the World Cup is my number one goal. Calling the Olympics, any sport, underwater basket weaving at the Olympics, like, that would be awesome. Because, and I know it's weird because the aren't the same as when we were kids. Like, the Olympics were it when we were growing up. So that's never left me, even though they've changed and the politics and everything around them these days are so much different. Like, I look at the Olympics coming to LA and the United States in a number of years, and it's kind of one of those things I have circled. Let's figure out a way to get to call something at these games. But getting back to it, would getting to be the voice of an NFL team be incredible? Of course. Like, would getting to be the voice of, my alma mater, Cal, for a sport? Yeah, that would really be something. So I think I just haven't allowed myself enough time to pause and think about that, what that would really mean, because of the association that comes with that, right? We kind of feel like we're friends with the broadcasters of the teams that we love. So yeah, I guess in answering this question, that would be pretty phenomenal, and I would definitely love to do that. But right now, I'm just kind of in the thick of it still. I still really feel like I've repeated so many times already. I'm still learning and growing, so I can't even fathom getting to do that yet. But maybe I should start thinking about it more.
Well, JB Long is the fencing guru, so he could probably, if you take care of JB, then you can do fencing in LA.
JB. Oh, so proud of him. And it's guys like JB and Guy Haberman, who again works with JB and myself at the Pac-12. Guy's gotten to fill in for Tim Roy on some Warriors broadcasts, and it's just being friends with them and being so close in age to them. That gives me the hope and the drive that, okay, this really is, like, we're getting close to it. It's possible. So keep grinding, keep listening to those two, because even though it's hard for me to understand that we're getting close to that age, because I still feel so young and like I'm still learning, it is possible. We are getting to that level. JB is the voice of the LA Rams. So that I love working with those guys. They really motivate me each and every day.
Well, Kate, how do people track you down or find you if they want to follow you on Twitter or watch you on television or hear you on radio?
Oh, geez. Do you want to do that? Okay. If you want to do that, I'm at Kate, the letter T, and then Scott. So Kate T. Scott on Twitter, because some jerk got to Kate Scott before me and never tweets from it. And geez, what can you do? But then I've gone with that handle for everything else to try to make it easier. So I'm at Kate P. Scott on Instagram. I think I'm at Kate Scott Pac-12 on Facebook, although apologies, I'm not on Facebook that much. And recently actually started doing radio again on the daily, which I'm wondering why I agreed to it, but I am enjoying it. We launched a Pac-12 SiriusXM channel. So it's Sirius 373. And I'm hosting our daily afternoon show from 3 to 6 p.m. Pacific time with Jeff Schwartz, played for Oregon. He was a lineman for a number of years in the NFL. So he and I are doing that show Monday through Friday in the afternoons. As often as I'm not calling a game, then there might be somebody else there. But I think those are all the ways. And then obviously on the Pac-12 network. Hopefully you get it. And if not, just get Sling. It's easy. Come on. There's so many over-the-top options these days. I don't want to hear it from all the people who say, we don't get it. I'm tired of that.
All you millennials with your cable
Seriously,
subscriptions.
Everybody watches TV on your phones. Come on. Get over it. Figure it out.
That is Kate Scott of the Pac-12 Networks joining us here on Play-by-Playcast. And if you did not get this sense listening to that interview as well, she does voiceover talent. If she wants to call any game, like, I'll put her on it. Like, just a tremendous voice for this industry, and voice for this craft, and voice for this profession. I think it was one of her coworkers at KNBR during my prep, in a newspaper article about her, called her voice buttery. I feel like that's an apt word. She's got a good voice for this craft. Many thanks to Kate Scott for joining us here on PXPcast this week. I said off the top, Kate is one of a litany of really good guests we've got coming up over the next couple of weeks as well. Next week, I don't know what order we're going to do these in. So next 2 weeks, Tim Roy, who's the radio voice of the Golden State Warriors, gets to talk about Steph Curry a lot, although not right now, but for the most part gets to talk about Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson. Tim Roy will be one of our guests in the next couple of weeks. Sat down with him this week while the Warriors were in town in Indianapolis to take on the Pacers. And then Ken Daniels, who is the more than 2 decades voice now on television of the Detroit Red Wings. As I record this, I'm actually sitting down with him tomorrow while I'm up here in the Metro Detroit area for baseball, sitting down with Ken Daniels tomorrow to talk about his career. So those 2 episodes, I can guarantee you, are coming your way in the coming weeks here on PXPcast. So keep it locked. If you do not subscribe yet to the podcast, hit the subscribe button. We will be downloaded every Friday morning straight into your podcast app, or however you find this podcast, whatever app or listening device you use. And throw us a rating and review as well. If you have a second, throw us some stars, quick little jot about what you enjoy about the podcast. Certainly helps me know that people are out there listening, and certainly helps with the ratings and the algorithms and all that stuff for iTunes to make it easier for people to find the podcast as well. So that'll wrap it up for us, though, this week. Many thanks again to Kate Scott. Many thanks to you for clicking subscribe and download and joining us once again. And we will talk to you 7 days from now. Hit it, Marshmallow. We're out.
And that will do it from St. Louis, where the score is inconclusive.